Holly Piirainen, a sweet and innocent 10-year-old girl, who, on August 5, 1993, went down the street to a neighbor's to see the new puppies. She never made it home. This is Night Owl. Today we're gonna journey to Sturbridge, Massachusetts, a small town with a population of around 9,889, known for its restaurants and many parks. One of its more notable tourist attractions is the old Sturbridge Village. It's one of those recreated jobs. I guess they took like 200 acres and turned it into a perfect replica of a New England town from the 1700s and 1800s. It sounds way cool. Anyway, in August of 1993, Sturbridge's population temporarily grew by a little bit, including 10-year-old Holly Piirainen, who came into town with her family to visit her grandparents for a week at their summertime home. On the morning of August 5, 1993, her father, Richard, took her and her two brothers out for some summertime fun on the lake by doing a bit of boating. And I bet they had a blast. When they returned to Holly's grandparents' house, Holly asked her dad if her and her 5-year-old kid brother Zach could take a little walk to a nearby neighbor's place to play with the new puppies they had. I guess the pups were to be let out of the house at around noon. Her dad said sure, so they left. That was at about 11:45 a.m. And that marked the last time her father ever spoke to his daughter. A little later, Zach returned to his grandparents' house without Holly and started playing with his Legos. When asked by his father where Holly was, he just said that she was still waiting to see the puppies. So, her dad sent her 8-year-old brother and Zach back to the neighbor's house to collect their sister. A short time later they returned to report that all they found of Holly was one of her shoes. This, of course, caused her folks to freak. They immediately called 911. As they waited the arrival of the cops, Rich took a little walk down to the neighbor's house to see what he could see. And what did he see? Well, nothing. There was no sign of his daughter. What's worse, nobody seen what happened. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, what? Are you bloody well kidding me right now? I mean, how can a kid get taken in broad daylight without anyone seeing it? Well, keep in mind, it was a pretty remote area, so it's not all that surprising. But one thing was sure. The hunt was on to find Holly Piirainen. Their search for Holly would come to a heartbreaking end on October 23, 1993, when a couple of hunters would stumble on some human remains in Brimfield, Massachusetts. These remains were positively identified as belonging to Holly Piirainen. Because of the condition of the body, it made identifying what happened to her very difficult. Now, that's not saying there were not any clues around her grave site. Wait. Scratch that. It wasn't a grave. This monster didn't even show this child enough dignity to give her even a shallow grave. When he was done with her, he just threw her out in the woods like yesterday's trash, leaving poor Holly totally exposed to the environment, and each and every scavenger that would come along. I gotta tell you, there is a special place in hell just waiting for this freak. Anyway, as I was saying, close to where Holly was found, they discovered her missing shoe and an adult-sized tank top. Now, this tank top has always been considered a crucial piece of evidence. In fact, it's been tested and retested over the years as technology changed and new techniques became available. But, as of the time this video has been made, 32 years after the fact, there still has never been any arrest made. However, that doesn't mean there hasn't been tips. There has been lots of them. Like this one, for example. It comes from a website called hellholly.com. It was made by a team calling themselves the Four of Us. They are retired law enforcement officers that actually worked on the Holly case back in the day. On their website they talk about a white or light brown pickup truck and a rather disturbing encounter. It seems that, at around the time Holly went missing, there were these two cousins, both 16-year-old girls. They were on their way to the end of their driveway to get the mail, when a pickup truck pulled up to them, slowing down to almost a stop. I guess he was checking them out like they were a couple of happy meals, which, as you can imagine, made them feel a bit uncomfortable. They even felt like he might jump out of his pickup and try to grab one of them. So they, quite wisely, did a bit of an U-turn and headed back towards the house where their fathers were. The dude in the pickup sped off, so they made another attempt to get the mail, and when they got to the mailbox it was empty. So they turned around and started to head back to the house. And just as they started walking, the guy returned, stopped at the end of their driveway, checked them out yet again like they were sides of beef. Then he took off down Allen Road. The one cousin went into the house and upstairs to the bathroom to look out the window, which gave a clear view of the end of the driveway and road. She saw the pickup truck for the third time. But this time it was a bit different. This time he sped past the house and kept his eyes forward, not looking for the cousins, and drove away. According to a police report, they pulled over the only local resident that owned a brown pickup truck on the same day that Holly went missing. He was a dude that had a pretty long rap sheet, nothing really involving a child though. He, incidentally, has never been identified. The investigators that run that website believe that this guy in the pickup was probably responsible for what happened to Holly. Do I agree that it was him? I'm not sure. I mean, he definitely sends up a few red flags, such as the fact that was revealed during a podcast interview with one of the relatives of Holly. In it, she said that an investigator had told the family that this man in the pickup truck had known information about the t-shirt that Holly was wearing, details that had not been made public. So, yeah. Could it have been him? Sure. But it could have just been a case of him seeing her standing on the side of the road while he was creeping out the two 16-year-olds and remembered the details of what she was wearing because he had a good memory. But I will say this. If it was him, and the cops let him go, then they messed up big time. Of course. He was not the only person of interest they had. Such as David Pouliot, for example. He used to live in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is about 37 minutes away from Sturbridge. On January 3, 2012, the DA of Hampden County announced that David was a person of interest. You see, there was some forensic evidence at the scene of where they had found Holly that was somehow linked to him. Now, the DA was pretty tight-lipped on what exactly that evidence was, but it was good enough for David to, as I said, be a person of interest, but the DA never actually called him a suspect. But there is a bit of a problem with David. If it was him, then he'll never face justice for his crime, seeing how he passed away in 2003. But the thing is, if he is the one that took Holly, then there might be a chance that she may not have been his only victim. I'm referring to the Molly Bish case. Molly was a 16-year-old from Warren, Massachusetts, who was taken on the 27th of June, 2000, shortly after she started her shift as a lifeguard at Coman's Pond. Her remains were found in 2003 in the woods. And he wasn't the only one suspected of both crimes. There was also Rodney Stanger, a dude that was convicted of unaliving his girlfriend back in 2008. And there was Gerald Bodystoney, a guy that got sent to prison for essaying his girlfriend's daughter over 100 times. And last, but definitely not least, there was Francis Sumner, who, back in the 80s, did a 9-year stay in prison for aggravated essay. Now, is it possible that one of these dudes had something to do with one or even both crimes? Sure it is. Am I completely convinced that these two cases are connected? Well, no, not entirely. It's just that. Well, isn't 7 years a long time to go between crimes? And yes, I do understand that it's nothing that we haven't seen before. But still, as always, it's just my opinion. But I do know of one connection the two cases had. Back in 1993, both Holly and Molly were 10 years old. And Molly wrote a letter of support to Holly's parents. Part of it read, and I quote, "I am very sorry. I wish I could make it up to you. Holly is a very pretty girl. She is almost as tall as me. I wish I knew Holly. I hope they found her. Molly Bish at age 10. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Molly was one sweet kid. Incidentally, if you want to learn more about the Molly Bish case, then please check out the last video I made. But it's important to remember that this is not a cold case, it's just an unsolved case. Meaning that tips are still coming in and still being investigated. Like this one from 2020. Investigators received a tip that someone had placed a letter about Holly in the casket of a 22-year-old man about 20 years ago. So they exhumed the body and retrieved the letter. But there was a problem. The body spent 20 years in the ground. By the time they dug it up, the casket was waterlogged. So even though the tip was good, and they were able to retrieve the letter, it suffered so much water damage it was almost useless. But if nothing else, it goes to show that tips continue to come in. And we continue to remember Holly. And if anyone out there has any information, then please contact the Hampton DA's office at 413-505-5993 or text the tip to crimes 274637. Remember, the tip you give might take an unsolved case and turn it into a solved case. But, solved or not, time continues to march on. The longer this case goes on unsolved, the more likely that the people who truly needs the closure that a solved case can bring will not receive it. In fact, that has already been the case with one of them. Christina Harrington, Holly's mother. She passed away on March 1, 2025, of a long illness in Utah. I think that Maureen Lemieux, who was Holly's aunt, said it best when she said, and I quote, "Tina was no longer in pain and is happy because she is with Holly." But tell me what you think. Do you think this case will ever be solved? Who do you think did it? Do you think that Holly's and Molly's cases are connected? Please tell me what you think in the comments. If you liked our content, then please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. It'll really help me with those pesky algorithms. And remember, be you good or be you wicked, everyone deserves justice. Good night.